Hey Capricorn, take a breath with me for a moment. There's a shift around you right now, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. You may have felt it already. Someone watching you in silence, someone growing uncomfortable as you rise, because your calm, your progress, is triggering something they can't control. This isn't just jealousy. This is envy that's turning inward, and here's the truth. What's coming toward you cannot be blocked. Before we go deeper, type "I receive" in the comments if you're ready to step fully into what's unfolding, because what I'm about to share next will explain why this moment is happening now, and why it's bigger than you think. Hey, stay with me for a moment. I want you to listen to this, not as a prediction, not as a message meant for everyone, but as something meant for you. Because something about you has changed, quietly, almost invisibly. You may not have announced it. You may not have even named it yet, but your energy has shifted. There's a steadiness in you now, a calm that doesn't need to prove anything, a confidence that doesn't speak loudly but somehow fills the room anyway. You're not reacting the way you used to. You're not chasing validation. You're not explaining yourself to people who never planned to understand you. And that silence, that grounded, unbothered way you move through life now, it's powerful. More powerful than you realize. Because there's someone around you, a woman in your orbit who can feel it. She may not say anything directly. She may even smile. But inside, something in her tightens every time she watches you move forward. Not because you did something wrong, not because you hurt her, but because you didn't break. She expected resistance to wear you down. She expected pressure to slow you. She expected life to humble you into staying small. And instead, you grew steadier, quieter, stronger. That kind of growth unsettles people, especially those who measure their worth by comparison. She watches you build without drama. She watches you remain composed when things don't go your way. She watches you rise without asking permission. And that does something to her, because your progress forces her to face something she's been avoiding, the distance between where she is and where she hoped she would be by now. So the envy grows, not loud, not explosive, but heavy. It sits with her. It follows her. It whispers questions she doesn't want to answer. Why you? Why now? Why not her? And here's the part I want you to really hear. Your rise isn't aggressive. It isn't intentional toward anyone. It's simply the result of you choosing yourself over and over again, even when it was uncomfortable. You didn't steal anything from anyone. You didn't take shortcuts. You didn't climb by stepping on someone else. You just kept going when it would have been easier to stop. And that's why what's happening around you now feels inevitable. There's a sense that something is aligning, like pieces that have been scattered for years are finally finding their place. You don't need to rush it. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to explain why you're no longer available for chaos, for doubt, for energy that pulls you backward. Just notice how much lighter you feel now that you're no longer trying to be understood by everyone. And as you sit with that, as you breathe into this version of yourself, there's something else quietly forming in the background, a realization, a turning point, a moment where things begin to make sense in a way they never did before. And when that moment arrives, you'll understand why everything had to unfold exactly like this. Just stay here with me. There's more waiting for you, right where you're standing now. There's something else I want you to notice, and it's subtle. But once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. The woman I mentioned earlier, she isn't just watching you casually. This has become personal for her, quietly personal. She measures her days against your progress. Her mornings begin with comparison. Her nights end with questions she can't answer. Not because she wants your life, but because your growth reminds her of everything she told herself she would become by now. She notices every step you take forward, every moment you don't collapse the way she expected, every time you stay calm when pressure shows up. And instead of inspiring her, it unsettles her. Because your steadiness exposes something she's been avoiding, the truth that strength built slowly is harder to imitate than strength borrowed from noise. You see, she thought endurance would wear you down. She thought silence meant weakness. She thought patience was hesitation. But you proved something without saying a word. You showed that consistency beats intensity, that focus outlasts chaos, that calm doesn't mean nothing is happening, and that realization, it sits with her. It grows heavier with time. She may never confront you directly. She may never admit it out loud. But inside there's a tightening every time she senses your momentum building, because on some level, she knows something important is aligning for you. She doesn't know what it looks like yet. She doesn't know when it fully arrives, but she can feel it. That unmistakable sense that the ground under you is becoming more solid while hers feels uncertain. And that awareness, that's where envy turns inward, not explosive, not dramatic, just consuming. It drains her energy, it pulls her focus away from her own path. It keeps her looking sideways instead of forward. And meanwhile, you're not even looking back. You're not trying to win anything. You're not proving a point. You're simply responding to your own calling, with discipline, with patience, with a kind of self-respect that doesn't need applause. And that's what she can't compete with. Because what's forming around you isn't fragile. It doesn't rely on validation. It doesn't collapse when tested. It's built on choices you made when no one was watching, on boundaries you held when it would have been easier to fold, on growth that required you to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. So when she senses that something big is coming your way, it doesn't feel fair to her. Not because you took something from her, but because she knows deep down she abandoned parts of herself you chose to protect. And that contrast, that quiet truth, is what makes the envy unbearable. But here's what I want you to take with you as you breathe through this moment. Her fixation is not your responsibility. Her comparison is not your burden. Her discomfort is not your signal to slow down. You don't need to shrink to make anyone else comfortable. You don't need to dim your progress to keep the peace. You don't need to explain why you're no longer available for energy that pulls you backward. Just stay present with what's unfolding inside you. Notice how grounded you feel now, how clear your direction has become. Because as all of this stirs quietly in the background, something else is beginning to take shape, not loudly, not urgently, but with purpose. And when the moment arrives, you'll recognize it instantly, not by noise, but by the calm certainty that tells you this is exactly where you were meant to be. Just stay here. There's more moving toward you than you realize. Of course, stay with me. Let this land gently, because what's happening with you right now is not about confrontation. It never was. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't push back. You didn't feel the need to explain yourself. And that choice, that quiet restraint, is where your power actually lives. You learned something over time, something many people never do, that not every situation deserves your reaction, that not every challenge requires a visible fight. So instead of engaging, you turned inward. You focused on what mattered. You put your energy into building, into refining your vision, into setting goals that stretch far beyond the present moment. While others looked for immediate wins, you were thinking long-term, slow growth, strong foundations. And that kind of focus changes the outcome before anyone notices. She didn't see the planning, she didn't see the late nights, she didn't see the moments you doubted yourself and chose discipline anyway. All she saw was the surface, your calm, your silence, your refusal to be pulled into drama. And she mistook that for hesitation. What she didn't understand was that you were already moving pieces behind the scenes, making adjustments, strengthening your position. You weren't standing still. You were positioning yourself. That's the difference. Because when someone is driven by emotion, they react, they rush, they burn energy trying to control outcomes. But you learned how to wait without losing momentum. You learned how to hold your ground without raising your voice. And now you're a few steps ahead without ever announcing the race. That's why she feels stuck. Because every attempt to interfere arrives too late. By the time she notices a move, you've already accounted for it. By the time she tries to disrupt your focus, you've already shifted direction. Not out of fear, out of strategy. And here's the part I want you to really feel. You didn't win because you were louder. You didn't win because you were aggressive. You didn't win because you took anything from anyone else. You won because you stayed committed when distractions tried to pull you off course. You chose patience over reaction, structure over impulse, purpose over proving a point. And that kind of win cannot be blocked because there's nothing to attack, nothing to grab onto, nothing to dismantle. Your strength isn't exposed, it's integrated. It lives in how you move, how you decide, how you conserve your energy for what truly matters. So, while she stays emotionally entangled than watching, comparing, reacting, you remain focused, clear, already preparing for what's ahead. And that gap between you, it keeps widening, not dramatically, not obviously, but inevitably. Take a moment and notice how grounded you feel now compared to who you were before. Notice how much less you need validation, how much quieter your confidence has become. That's not distance, that's alignment. And as that alignment deepens, something else begins to respond to it. Opportunities, recognition, moments that feel timed rather than forced. You don't have to chase them. They begin to meet you where you stand. So just stay steady, stay intentional, because the way you've chosen to move through this, without fighting, without explaining, without shrinking, has already shifted the direction of your path. And what's unfolding now will make it very clear why this was the only way it could have happened. Stay with me. Let the pace slow just a little here. Because what's beginning to gather around you now, it doesn't need announcing. It doesn't need forcing. It's already forming on its own. There's a quiet shift in how people respond to you. Have you felt it? That subtle pause before they speak. That moment where their eyes linger a second longer than before. It's recognition, not loud applause, not flattery, but something steadier, something earned. You're being seen differently now, not as someone who is trying, but as someone who has arrived at a certain level without losing their grounding. Opportunities begin to surface this way. Softly, almost casually, a conversation that turns into an opening. An invitation that feels aligned rather than random. A door that seems to open without resistance. And the thing about it is that you didn't chase any of this. You built your life with intention. You showed up consistently. You stayed disciplined when no one was watching. So, when recognition finds you, it feels natural, like something finally catching up to the work you've already done. And this kind of visibility, it cannot stay hidden forever. Not because you want attention, but because your presence carries weight now. People feel safer listening to you. They trust your judgment. They sense that you don't move from impulse, but from understanding. That kind of respect spreads quietly. And yes, this is the moment that unsettles her the most, because she sees it happening, even if she pretends not to. She notices how others respond to you, how your name comes up differently now, how your efforts are no longer overlooked. It's not just success that bothers her, it's legitimacy, the kind that cannot be questioned, the kind that doesn't need defending. And when your achievements become visible, when your stability becomes obvious, when your progress stands right there in the open, there's nothing she can say to minimize it. No story she tells, no doubt she tries to plant, no shadow she casts can dim something that is already grounded in truth. Because this isn't temporary momentum, it's structure, it's earned placement, it's alignment meeting preparation. And you feel it too. There's a sense of calm excitement, not anxious, not rushed, just a knowing, like standing at the edge of a view you worked years to reach and realizing the climb actually mattered. You don't need to announce yourself. Your presence speaks for you now, and that brings a different kind of confidence, one that doesn't need comparison, one that doesn't react to envy, one that understands that being seen is not something you force, it's something that happens when you stop hiding your truth from yourself. So, if you've felt moments lately where things suddenly make sense, where your patience finally feels justified, where the pressure you carried starts to lift, that's not coincidence. That's timing, aligning with readiness. And as this clarity settles in, as your path becomes more visible, there's something else quietly preparing to meet you. Not as a reward, but as a continuation. A natural unfolding that invites you to step fully into who you've been becoming, without shrinking, without apology, without hesitation. Just breathe here for a moment. Let the recognition land gently. Let the respect feel real. Because what's showing itself now is only the beginning of what your steadiness has made possible. Stay right here with me. There is a quiet clarity settling into you now. Not sharp, not confrontational, just calm. You've begun to notice things you once brushed past. The tone behind certain words, the pauses that say more than sentences ever could. The way some people lean in when they want something and pull back when they realize they no longer have access to you. This didn't happen overnight. It came from experience, from watching patterns repeat until you finally trusted what you were seeing. You're no longer guessing, you're recognizing. You can feel the difference now between sincerity and performance, between support and curiosity, between someone who wants the best for you and someone who wants to understand you only enough to stay one step ahead. And the shift is subtle, but powerful. Because you don't announce this awareness, you don't confront it. You simply adjust. Your energy pulls back where it once overextended. Your attention becomes selective. Your trust becomes intentional. That's how maturity shows up. There was a time when this woman believed she could influence how you saw yourself. A raised eyebrow here, a carefully timed comment there, just enough doubt to slow you down. And maybe once that would have worked, but not now. You see through the strategy. You feel the undercurrent beneath the words, and instead of reacting, you pause. You let the moment pass without handing over your confidence. That's what unsettles her. Because manipulation needs confusion to survive, and you are no longer confused. You've learned that clarity isn't loud. It doesn't argue. It simply knows. So when someone tries to redirect your focus, you don't resist. You just don't follow. You stay centered in your own knowing. And this is where your power has deepened. Not in dominance, not in control, but in discernment. You're no longer easily impressed, no longer easily swayed, no longer pulled off course by someone else's insecurity. And that creates distance, not distance born of bitterness, but distance born of self-respect. You don't need to cut anyone off dramatically. You simply stop feeding what drains you, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dynamic changes. She realizes she can no longer reach you the way she used to, that her words don't land, that her presence doesn't shift your posture. And when someone loses that kind of influence, they feel exposed. But this isn't about winning or proving anything. This is about you coming home to yourself, to your intuition, to your inner authority, to that quiet voice that says this feels right or this doesn't. And you trust it now. You don't second-guess your boundaries. You don't apologize for your clarity. You don't explain your discernment to people who benefited from your confusion. That chapter has closed. And as you move with this new steadiness, something else begins to happen. Your energy becomes clean, undivided, focused. You start conserving your strength for what actually matters. And when that happens, the world responds differently. Not all at once, but steadily. You feel more grounded in your decisions, more at ease with your choices, less affected by outside noise. That's not detachment, that's alignment. So if you've noticed recently that certain situations no longer pull at you, that certain people no longer confuse you, that your inner voice feels clearer than it used to, that's not coincidence. That's growth taking root. And as this awareness settles deeper, as your sense of self becomes less negotiable, there's a quiet readiness forming inside you. A readiness for something that requires discernment, stability, and trust in your own perception. Just stay present with that feeling. Let it guide you gently, because the clarity you've earned is preparing you for what's already finding its way toward you. Stay with me. Let your shoulders drop a little. There's a feeling arriving in your life now that doesn't rush you, but it does ask for honesty. You're standing at a quiet threshold, not the kind that announces itself, but the kind you recognize in your body before you name it in your mind. Something is opening. You may feel it as restlessness, or curiosity, or a subtle sense that the old rhythm no longer fits the way it used to. What once felt secure now feels narrow. What once felt familiar now feels slightly outgrown. And that can be unsettling. You've worked hard to build stability. You value structure. You don't move unless it makes sense. So, when this new direction begins to reveal itself, it doesn't arrive as excitement first. It arrives as hesitation, a pause, a question. Is this really necessary? Is this the right moment? What if I disrupt what I've worked so hard to protect? Those questions are natural. They come from wisdom, not fear. Because this isn't about abandoning who you are, it's about allowing yourself to expand. You're being invited to make a choice that aligns more closely with your truth. A choice that may not look dramatic from the outside, but feels significant on the inside. It might involve a new role, a new environment, a new way of defining success, or simply a new relationship with yourself. Whatever form it takes, it asks you to trust something deeper than logic, to trust your readiness. You didn't arrive here by accident. Every delay, every lesson, every moment where you chose discipline over comfort prepared you for this opening. And yes, it may pull you slightly outside what feels safe. You may feel unsure at times, unfamiliar with the terrain, aware that you can no longer rely on old formulas. But growth was never meant to feel familiar. It was meant to feel alive. There's a quiet courage building in you now, not the kind that charges forward, but the kind that breathes deeply and steps forward anyway. And here's something important to remember. While you're considering what this shift asks of you, someone else remains frozen watching from the same place, unable to move past what they know. She senses the distance growing, not because you pushed her away, but because you chose movement over stagnation. Change threatens those who rely on comparison to feel secure, but you're no longer measuring your life against anyone else's. You're listening inward, now. And that inner guidance, it doesn't shout, it doesn't pressure. It simply waits until you're ready to meet it. So, if you felt moments recently where your intuition speaks louder than expectations, where your heart nudges you towards something new, even as your mind asks for guarantees, that's not confusion. That's alignment forming. You're not being asked to leap blindly. You're being asked to trust that you've already learned how to land. And as you begin to honor that trust, something shifts in the way life meets you. Doors respond differently. People respond differently. You respond differently to yourself. There's less resistance, less second guessing, more presence. Just allow yourself to sit here for a moment, with the awareness that the version of you who began this journey could not have handled what you're ready for now. And that's not loss, that's progress. So keep listening, keep breathing, because the path ahead isn't asking you to rush. It's simply asking you to be willing. Stay with me here. Let the quiet settle in. There is a moment that happens when someone else keeps moving forward, and you can no longer distract yourself from the truth. It is not loud, it does not announce itself, but it is unavoidable. As you continue to rise in your own way, steady, grounded, unbothered, she is left alone with her reflection. Not the version she shows the world, the private one, the one that shows up late at night when there is nothing left to scroll, nothing left to blame, nothing left to point at except herself. Your progress becomes a mirror, not because you intended it to be, but because growth has a way of revealing what has been ignored. She begins to replay old choices, moments where she could have turned inward, moments where she could have built something real, moments where she chose comparison instead of courage. And that realization is heavy, because envy is exhausting. It consumes time, it drains creativity, it pulls attention away from the only place where change can happen. Inside. While you were learning patience, she was watching. While you were learning discipline, she was measuring. While you were learning how to stay focused, she was waiting for you to fall. And now, with each step you take forward, she is forced to confront how long she has stood still. This is the part no one talks about. The hardest truth is not that someone else succeeded. It is realizing you stopped believing in yourself along the way. You do not have to say a word. You do not have to explain your journey. You do not have to correct the stories she tells herself. Your life is already answering the questions she avoids. And that answer is simple. Growth comes from commitment, from showing up again and again, from choosing responsibility over resentment. You chose that path, even when it was lonely, even when it was slow, even when it would have been easier to quit. She did not. And now, the distance between you feels permanent, not because you created it, but because time did. There is something deeply human about this moment. It reminds us that every choice carries weight. That energy spent tearing down is energy not spent building up. And still, this is not about punishment. It is about consequence. You are living the result of your dedication. She is facing the result of her distraction. You are allowed to keep moving without guilt. You are allowed to let success speak for itself. You are allowed to remain kind without remaining available. Because growth does not require cruelty, it requires clarity. And clarity often means allowing people to face their own truths without interruption. If you have ever felt tempted to shrink, to slow down, to soften your progress, so others would feel better, this is your reminder. Your evolution is not an attack. Your fulfillment is not a betrayal. Your stability is not something you owe anyone an apology for. You earned this ground beneath your feet, step by step, choice by choice. So, as she sits with what she avoided and you continue toward what you committed to, there is a quiet balance being restored, not through confrontation, not through words, but through reality. Just breathe that in for a moment, because there is something freeing about realizing you do not have to carry anyone else's unfinished work. You are here to live your own. And as this understanding settles, as compassion replaces comparison, as confidence replaces explanation, there is a gentle release happening inside you, a sense of lightness, a sense of closure. And with that, the path in front of you feels clearer, more open, more yours. Stay with that feeling. There is still movement ahead. Stay with me a little longer. This part matters. Because what you chose to do next was not dramatic, it was not reactive, it was quiet, and it was final. You did not run. You did not disappear out of fear. You simply stepped away with clarity. You noticed how certain spaces felt heavier after you entered, how some conversations left you drained instead of inspired, how a few connections required you to shrink in ways you no longer could. So, you listened. You began to remove yourself from what pulled you backward, from energy that asked you to explain your worth, from relationships that survived only when you doubted yourself. And the moment you did, something shifted inside you. Your body felt lighter. Your thoughts became quieter. Your direction grew clearer. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because it became honest. There is strength in choosing yourself without announcing it, in leaving without burning bridges, in walking away without resentment. That kind of departure changes everything, because when you no longer feed what drains you, it loses power on its own. She felt that immediately, not because you confronted her, but because the connection went silent. No reaction to read, no access to your emotions, no space to influence your movement. And when someone loses that kind of influence, they are left only with themselves. You did not take anything from her. You did not close a door in her face. You simply stopped standing in the doorway, and the road in front of you widened. You began to see options you could not see before, possibilities that required room to breathe, opportunities that needed your full presence. This is what freedom actually looks like. Not escape, not rebellion, but alignment. You did not lose anything real by letting go. You released what was already holding you back, and in doing so, you reclaimed something essential: your energy, your focus, your sense of direction. You are no longer negotiating with doubt. You are no longer entertaining comparison. You are no longer carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. That is why nothing can stop you now. Not because you are invincible, but because you are no longer divided. Your effort goes in one direction. Your intention is clear. Your path is steady. And when a person moves like that, there is nothing to block. Others may watch. Some may feel uncomfortable. Some may feel left behind. But that is not your burden. You were not meant to stay small to make others feel secure. You were meant to build something lasting, something honest, something that reflects who you have become. And now, as you continue upward quietly, consistently, with your feet firmly on the ground, you are being seen. Not for who you used to be, but for who you are now. Respected, recognized, unshakable. She may still look on from a distance, still wrestle with feelings she never resolved, still wonder how you move so far ahead. But you are no longer part of that story. Your life is moving forward, cleanly, purposefully, without obstruction. Take a moment and feel that. The space around you, the calm in your chest, the confidence that does not need validation. This is not the end of anything meaningful. It is the beginning of living unburdened. So keep going, at your pace, in your way, because you are climbing higher now, and nothing and no one can pull you back from where you are headed. Stay here for one last moment. Let everything you've heard settle gently, because the truth is nothing in this message was about someone else. Not really. She was only a reflection, a contrast, a reminder of what happens when one soul chooses growth and another chooses resistance. This story was always about you, about the quiet strength it takes to keep going when no one is clapping yet, about the discipline to build a life that makes sense to you, even when others do not understand it. You didn't rise by accident. You didn't get here by luck. You earned every inch of ground beneath your feet. And if tonight something in you feels calmer, clearer, more rooted than before, that's your confirmation. You are exactly where you need to be. There is nothing chasing you, nothing missing, nothing you need to prove, only a path that continues to open step by step, as long as you trust yourself enough to keep walking it. If this message resonated with you, if it felt like it spoke directly to your experience, leave a comment below and write, "I trust my path." That simple act anchors the energy you're stepping into. And if you're part of this Capricorn community, this circle of steady builders and quiet climbers, make sure you're subscribed. Because this isn't the end of the conversation. There are more messages coming, more clarity, more reminders of who you are becoming and why your journey has unfolded the way it has. We're walking this road together, one insight at a time, one step higher each day. Until the next message finds, you stay grounded, stay patient, stay true to yourself. The journey continues.